Dr. Barry Cook. Real issues, real talk. And now, here is Don and Barry.
I want to welcome you back to another episode of God's Garage. We are your hosts, Barry Cook, Don Hughes, with our good friend, Pastor Greg Hurd, Lake Church, Manford, Oklahoma. And the last few programs, Barry, Pastor's been with us, and we talked about discipleship. And the programs went so quick, so much information.
I know.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit, gentlemen, and we want to talk in these next two programs about the subject of leadership. Barry, let's define it. Let's talk about what it is, what it isn't, character traits that make a leader, things. One thing I really want to make sure we get across in these next two programs, it's not about a title. It is about a function. And I've seen so many people get the title but never function in it, and it causes problems. So,
absolutely. Well, first thing that I want to say is we just finished with the shows on discipleship, and this is really critically important because realistically, from Scripture, we know that all the leaders came up out of being a disciple, a disciplined learner. And in realistic terms, that means they understood what they believed. They understood how to apply it. They understood and had experience in teaching it and duplicating themselves and other people. They had experience in working with a team and having to work alongside other people and mesh their spiritual gifts together with other people. It's really critical, and I often say as an overview, we've got to learn about grace, because grace enables us to be able to understand what God's doing with us, the patience He gives us, the immediate work He's done in our hearts, as well as the progressive work He's doing in us. And we have to understand spirit life. Then everything then lends to a spirit life, and this is what brings us into our gifts, but it also brings us into our character and deeper realms of God working on our character and mindsets. It's like I often say, people will tell me, you don't know my culture. That's why we act like that in our culture. So it might look offensive to you, but it's just our culture, or, that we yell at people and that's just what we do. Yeah. And my thing is always, well, I came out of a culture that did that too. We weren't from your part of the country, but that was my culture too. I had to make a choice to look at how do I shift what I grew up in as a culture to kingdom culture.
That's really good.
So that the kingdom lives in me.
Really good.
And it's not just living outside of me. So as long as I make excuses for, but I hold on to this kingdom, but I even know it's dysfunctional and not healthy, but yet I'm gonna defend it. See, I've not yet came to the cross yet. And looked for God's way, that original intent of ways. Yeah. So, and I'll throw this around the table before I go to the next thing, but I just want to say, so my first phase is kind of understanding where we are in discipleship. And then from that, being, learning basic elements, and then connecting with your leadership in a manner that you can be honed and they can help you find your potentials, your giftings, your callings, and then help you to place yourself in better positions in your life, with your family, in the church, in the kingdom. It affects everything.
Well, the development of leadership has a lot of mythology to it.
Come on now.
I get this a lot. People will come, they will desire leadership training, they'll desire training for ministry, and they have a preconceived notion as to what that entails or what that should look like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this directly to the camera. It does not mean that you're going to have barbecue at my house every Saturday. It does not mean we're going to go on vacation together.
Right.
Yeah.
It does not mean that we're going to constantly have texting back and forth. We need to erase the fallacy that friendship is primarily the way someone trains for leadership.
That's really good.
And
That's really good.
Because a lot of people, why do people leave churches? well, I just don't get along with the pastor, or he a lot of times we're judged based on what we didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or what we should have done in their eyes.
Oh yeah.
And so they want this one-on-one relationship. They want access. And again, we talked about boundaries, before we started filming here today.
Yeah.
If you don't understand boundaries as a leader, if you don't understand boundaries, you are not properly processing people.
That's right.
In the right way.
Guys, our perception becomes our reality. And so if people have gone through a couple different churches and they show up at yours, they already have a preconceived idea. Their perception is reality to them based on what they've experienced before they got to you. The problem I have, guys, is, all right, let's just use the pastor for a moment. They have a preconceived idea of where they've come from, and you addressed it, of how you should be.
Yes.
So all the enemy has to do is get you to do one thing that doesn't look like where they've come from, and now they don't think, I knew. No. And so there's got to be a process of relearning, and we've got to be able to come into a ministry in leadership and say, okay, that's how that ship did it. This is a different ship.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be involved in here, I've got to find out their vein, their idea, their concepts, and can I fit into that program and be a part of it?
Jesus did not run after the rich young ruler.
That's correct.
No, he did not.
He let the rich young ruler walk.
Mm-hmm.
And many times we run after people's potential, and we fall in love with people's potential, and
That's
it ends
so
up
good.
hurting us
That's correct.
as well.
Yeah.
And as well as hurting them.
Mm-hmm.
And we set people up for failure when we're not. We don't set the proper boundaries. My pastor, when I went and saw him and told him that I wanted to train for the ministry, he just looked straight at me. He said, okay, well, you're going to buck chairs.
Yeah.
You're going to clean toilets.
That's what we were
You're going to
talking
mow
about.
grass.
Yeah.
And I mainly mentor from the pulpit.
Oh.
Wow.
And
Wow.
now it's taken me years to look back on that experience and to see that it was actually profitable, okay? Because there was such tension in our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that tension was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Slack rope doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help
That's
anybody.
good.
But
That's
the tension between a leader and a potential leader has to be there. There has to be some respect.
So friction's not a cause to run. It's not a cause to leave.
Friction is necessary.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Friction is absolutely
absolutely.
necessary.
And as I had on my mind, even they were talking, because when I talk about potential, a lot of times we just think potential as they got this great gifting, and that's why I jot down a couple of things like potential. Yes, do they have a potential from their past? Because what has been the track record? Because that helps you know how to disciple. Because then you, not to judge somebody, but so you can understand what areas they're going to need to not make the same mistakes that have that have kept them from reaching their potential in the past. Obviously, they have to have a potential for the future. And basically, some people just want to come and they want to get involved, but they're not really locked into seeing. You've got to see. Without that prophetic sight, you can't see where you're headed personally or corporately or anything else. So it's like I tell guys all the time, how many times do people tell us this? They come to church and they say, I was coming to this church, I went to this class, I went to this ministry training, I go to all the classes they said to go, but there is no ministry training tracks to produce the end disciple,
Right,
product.
right,
But
right.
so you're right. Potential is another thing, and then I always say potential and discontentment, meaning how we act during discontentment. And why do I list these things? Because these are the things that stop the potential of giftings coming to their fullness, because they really deal with elements of character. Because it is easy when everything's going your way and you're the prize of the party and all of that kind of stuff. But when all of a sudden things shift and you're put to the back and all of a sudden you have to do something you didn't want to do or didn't expect to do or didn't sign up for. I mean, people with true leadership potential that I love to draw from are those that they can get in discontentment because they're working together to make it better because they don't want it to stay like that either.
Yeah, most people don't survive the second Passover.
Right.
We know the first Passover, but the second Passover means that you are passed over for ministry opportunities. It's like it's God intentionally passing you over and using someone else that you think is not as qualified as you.
Yeah.
That's a test.
Yeah, it is.
It's a test, and it's the friction that's necessary to make strong leaders.
But Barry, Greg said it. I know you have. We have. And when we say these things, it's not a bragging thing. It was all part of the process of becoming the leaders that God has raised us up to be in 30, 40 years of ministry. When I went to work for my dad, and he hired me as a co-evangelist, he paid me $50 a week when I first got out of Rhema. $50 a week. I'm married with a baby.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I cleaned the toilets. I mopped the hallways. I vacuumed the carpet. I answered the phone. I took the trash out. I booked my dad's meetings. I mean, just hands-on.
Right.
And here's the thing. I know this is going to sound crazy. I was excited about doing it.
I know.
Because I'm helping my dad, my biological dad, my spiritual dad. And, and all of a sudden, a month later, and I'll say this real quick, but it's important, a phone call comes into the office. I answer the phone. It's Don Hughes Ministries. Well, we'd like to speak to Don Hughes. I said, well, this is his son. No, we want to talk to you. I said, well, what can I do for you? They said, well, we have a women's Bible study in Wagner, Oklahoma. And we know you went to Rhema. And we know about your dad's ministry. And we want to know, would you be willing to come once a week and teach us, our ladies about faith?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, let me check with my dad. I checked with my dad. He said, yeah.
Wait, you said what?
I checked with my dad.
Oh, why'd you do that?
Because I'm under authority and I'm working for
saying,
him.
no.
I know, yeah. And he said, well, sure, son, go ahead. If you're in town and you're here, yeah. Those ladies gave me more every Tuesday night at a Bible study than I was getting paid for all of that I was doing for Dad's ministry. And the Lord taught me being faithful. If what you put your hand to is someone else's, God opens the door for you. And I mean, I like tripled my income in just one simple.
And one thing that needs to be said in regards to that is that we have a preconceived idea that mentors should always have the answers for us.
Ooh,
Mentors should create more questions.
They should.
Because a quest is a journey. It's a journey to self-discovery and God discovery. And if your mentor is answering all the questions for you, you've got a manipulator, not a mentor.
Yeah, you do.
My goodness.
Because they want you to think. They want you to think. Because that's my big deal. My big difference now in discipling, and you've watched me over the years, is now, I ask questions. I ask tons of questions, even if I know all the answers. And even if they ask me back a question, or give a wrong answer, I'll re-ask another question to get them to think outside of that. Because I've realized the objective is not for people to follow me, but to follow Christ on their own. That's the true heart of a parent, or a father. Just like I was talking in between, and I was saying, it has been my intention from the beginning with my child to raise her to where she can stand on her own no matter what, and then make a decision from there. So that way, even making a decision about a marriage is not based on does he have money or can he take care of me. It's, do we love each other? Do we have a solid connection here? And then we'll worry about those things.
I like what he said, though. And think about it. How many questions did Jesus ask?
Oh,
not statements that he made.
Oh, lots.
And that is all a part of teaching and training. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
Has the church mimicked the secular world in letting people, teaching them what they need to know rather than teaching them how to think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in the last show, you mentioned Moses and Joshua, and it always catches my attention because some of the people were surprised that Joshua went up. But the deal about Joshua, when you look back through reading, he's trying to go up the mountain every time Moses went up. He wanted to see.
Yes, he did.
He'd go as far as he could without,
Yeah.
being able to handle it each time. And every time something occurred, he's like right in the middle of it. It doesn't always say he was asked to do it,
Yes.
but his hunger, it caught his attention. I think it was like Peter with Jesus. He's like, yeah, he's a little rambunctious, but he's going to get something done if we can get him straight.
Yeah.
And that. But here's another point. When we talk about potential again, one of the basic things I say before we get to the giftings, what is your potential in responsibility? Meaning you just see a need. How do you interact with it? Do you crash it? Do you try to preach down at everybody when you don't have a position? Do you just get in there and make the people feel better about who they are, even if you don't have a position and could do it better? To me, these are the things that I think, now this is a real leader. Now, the reason I brought up Joshua, and I tie this back into, because I think today, too, because we don't deal, we either have one side or the other again. We'll talk about you need to honor those in authority. You better submit. You better obey. So if you're not, so there's no relationship. There's no love. There's no interchange. Mm-hmm. So we have this side, or we have the other side that just does whatever, and we just want you. We just need you. We just want you to get in it. But there is no, the person doesn't, they don't take responsibility. I'm not doing that. That's not my job. I mean, how many churches are we going into? And I know I beef on this stuff. You're sitting there and you got a room full of people and you got stuff going on, but nobody will stand up to help. There's no usher over here. And you got a front row of leaders that see it going on and have no problem looking back and giving dirty looks.
Yeah.
But nobody will jump up. Pastor trips going up and they're laughing instead of trying to help him get up. I'm thinking, that kind of stuff blows me away. That's the dislink from heart. That's the heart. So I'm going to have a friendship, because I've worked for pastors, especially back in the day. You weren't friends with pastors, but you honored them. Yeah. And it wasn't about that. It was having the privilege to be able to learn from somebody that you knew was giving you something greater. I had a great mentor as far as leadership, which is my dad. I mean, but spiritual leadership, I was void. And I needed it. I hungered for it. And that came from me keeping my heart connected to God. Because when it's a real vision from God, you got to pray over it to keep it connected. It's not going to just stay connected. Because everything in you, everything in your old emotions and old ways of doing things, everything in secular methods, the people around you will, what are you doing that for? It's a heart thing first. Yes. Leadership is. And that's where sometimes people say, why did you raise them up? And I'm like, well, because they're not sitting there with that cynical attitude asking me why somebody else was raised up. They're the ones just, what else can I do? How can I do it?
Yeah.
I may not be the most gifted, but I'll get that done for you. You or guys that show up at the church and I'm like, I called ahead and we arranged all this stuff. I don't know why they're not here. And I'm like, now, are these new people? I know he's asked some kind of silly questions. I'm trying to make a point. No, these are my leaders. These are my deacons, my elders. I'm thinking, now, how did they become deacons or elders? It's like I start going back down because I'm thinking there is a critical pathway coming up through learning discipleship and then coming in discipleship. And really, deacons was about serving. So that's like everything you've learned now. You've got authority to get in there and lead and serve and bless and flow. Yeah. And then from that group, we'll pull the elders. And then after you learn to oversee people, then we'll call you this, or this, and send you out on something, and then we'll give you feedback on that.
Yes.
And everybody's just trying to skip it. They just want to skip everything, and that's too much trouble. And again, some people, there is no end. It's never-ending training. Yes. 15 years, there's no end to it. There's not a track to it. When we reach this, we don't get this because we're really not a sending organization. We're just trying to keep. We want mature people to make us more mature instead of reduplicating themselves.
Yeah. What's your criteria, Pastor? Or your
excellent.
Yeah,
those are my thoughts.
What you do to look for and raise up leaders within your house?
Well, looking at potential leaders and looking at them is mainly people who show up.
Right on, brother.
And
that's good.
It's just people who show up, and they show up and they keep showing up.
That's my point.
And many times they may not be the most qualified or creative or talented, but faithfulness
Wow.
is key, and I think the Bible gives great precedence to faithfulness in
Yeah.
regards to that.
Yeah.
If I don't see, there's been many times that I have fallen to the same foibles that all pastors do, where you try to get a free agent from another church
Oh, yeah.
and try to place
I
them
love
in
your
there.
terminology. Get a free agent. That's
And,
good.
Foibles.
Yeah.
And then, the free agent tends to be a bomb, or tends to be divisive, or tends to cause problems. I would rather train from within.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in having, a minor league, a spring training league, whatever.
Yeah.
Using the baseball analogy, continually farming
Yep,
new and young leaders, which we do through our programs. But I will say something else that is a major issue. When you are interviewing a prospective leader, whether it's a leader over a volunteer department or a leader in pastoral or ministry department, you need to take them out with their spouse, and you need to study the body language of the spouse.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
All right.
That's good right there.
Because you will find out because the spouse is going to lead the situation. And if she's not enthused or he's not enthused about what this person is doing, then you basically got someone dead in the water.
Yeah. You can see a lot into potential hangups and areas that you can help them as well.
I love what he said. He looks for people who just show up and then who are faithful.
Yeah.
And but even in that, there's two sides of that. Here's two scriptures.
Yeah.
A faithful man shall abound with blessings.
Right.
A faithful man who can find.
I know.
So I mean,
It's
there's
required of
a
steward.
promise, but there's a question too. They're difficult to find, but when you find them,
majority of the anxiety that pastors have in establishing or pioneering works is team building. And it is the fact that you don't have the pieces you want. But we have to go back to the cave of Adullam and go back to the fact that when David went to the cave, it said everyone that was his relatives showed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't necessarily make the best, visioneering, but then it says the bankrupt.
Yeah.
And those that were wanted by the law, and those that were
Stress,
handicapped
discontent.
and discontent,
Disgruntled.
and
Yeah.
disgruntled.
most likely to not succeed.
Yeah. And listen, I have found it to be the case in helping church planners and pioneering the work here, that is the first, variety pack you get from God to start your church. It's the seed pack.
It is.
And what you do with that is dependent on what you're going to get later on.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not faithful with that,
Yeah.
then there's no way that I'm going to be faithful with, the kind of team members that I want. I have to be diligent and consistent with developing talent no matter what comes my way. If God brings me somebody, He gives me the responsibility to, now it's up to them whether they're going to achieve success or not.
Right.
But I've got to facilitate, because that's what I'm called
If we're
to do.
faithful over what He gives us,
Yes.
He'll send us more.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this, I'm going to do like you've been doing. I'm going to say this, then loop it to you for the finish statement on this program. And I just want to say that, when we get somebody, and it's like I tell people all the time, me, I'll use whatever, but I always say, I say, guys, but these things are what we're looking for to fill these slots. Well, I thank you for being here right now. Maybe this will grow into these, and if not, help us pray and look for these people among our body. So I don't relent, because guys are always like, well, if you do that, you're good. I'm like, no. I'm not letting go of where we're headed.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Can you summarize that? And
Oh,
bring
my
us home
goodness.
today. We got another show here. We'll try to break it down a little bit. But,
Well, you guys all know this. I mean, so many people, they want the title, they want the prestige, the Diotrephes spirit's what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a situation years ago. I'd pioneered a church. It was taking off, growing, great things happening, and we developed team pastors over a certain amount of families, 10, 12 families.
Yes.
And this couple, man, had the charisma, excited, going, and then so when it came down to it, they didn't realize that ministry wasn't always convenient. And they didn't realize that there was more than a title. There was responsibility that went with that title.
Oh, yeah.
And
Functionaries.
when it came right down to it, and this is so many years ago, you don't be trying to figure out who it was. You won't. But here's what was said. Well, this is cutting into our family time. And I said, well, how many nights a week do you need to sit down and eat as a family where you feel like you're okay? And they said, well, 5, 6, 7. I said, you're really not really ready for ministry right yet. I mean, just because that's never convenient. I mean, there are things about it. And what I realized was they wanted to be a part of that team and that title.
Yeah.
But when it came to the function of that and the responsibility, they really gave themselves away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, y'all, I mean, last thought before we end this program, Pastor?
Well, going with what you said, most people apply or ascend to leadership positions for access.
Right.
It's really good for access.
Yeah.
Access. Listen, folks, we're going to continue part 2 in the next program on the subject of leadership. I know Barry's got some great other things that we want to get into and talk about and dissect. We appreciate you guys watching these programs. Yeah. We pray and we seek the Lord, and we believe that they are geared to reaching you where you are, where you live, how you walk your life. It's not about 3 points in a poem. It's practical giving and instruction and teaching that will help you better your life, your family, your business, your mindset, encourage you, get you through difficult times, whatever any of those situations might be. And if you're watching today and pastors, maybe you've been discouraged because you don't have the leaders yet that you want, or you've gone through difficulties. We just speak peace to you in the name of Jesus. We just speak the grace of God to cover you. And Father, we ask you that man or woman, that you would send in servants' heart people, those that would serve and pick up the towel and wash and help and cleanse, Father. Give them a second wind in the Spirit.
Yes.
Give them encouragement again, that they've been knocked down, but they can't be knocked out. Their best is still in front of them, not behind them.
That's right.
Their greatest days are ahead and not behind.
Yes.
And Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come into their homes, into their lives each week and pour in an encouraging word, to pour in oil and wine, and to help them get back on the road to recovery and on the road to life. We love you guys. God bless you. Have a great day.
It's God's Garage with Dr. Don Hughes, Dr. Barry Cook. Real issues, real talk.